morning, church family. I'm really glad to see you all here. God bless you for being here this morning as part of our worship service. And it's my hope and prayer that God will bless you this week with opportunities to serve Him. May it be that when those opportunities do show themselves, that we take those opportunities and use them to bring glory to God and lead other people to Him. So if you've been with us for the last few weeks, you know that we've been thinking about growing the church, the ways that we can better lead other people to Christ and expand the borders of Christianity in the world. Now, what I've emphasized to you in the last few lessons is the fact that churches have made a really big mistake in thinking that the worship service is what we're here to do. We have gotten to the point where we think we're in the entertainment business. Our job, our business as the church, we think, is putting on a show once a week. And we make our Christianity revolve all around that. Good works kind of end up taking a back seat. The reality of it is we've got it backwards. The worship service like we're doing right now is only meant to be one small piece of a greater puzzle. One small piece of what we do. The rest of the picture is going out throughout the week and trying to do good things and bring people to Christ. But sometimes we reverse that. We think the big picture is the service, doing good works, a little piece over here. We get it backwards, and we've done that, I think, a lot of churches have for generations, and then we want to know, well, why are we dying off? Why are fewer and fewer people going to church and becoming Christians? I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that we've got things backwards. And then people will complain and fuss about the services. We get so fixated, over-fixated on the worship services that we start arguing back and forth about, well, we need to make things more organized. That'll make things better around here, and people will start coming. No, we need to make things a little bit more laid back and relaxed. That'll make people feel better. And I'm going to tell you something. I've heard people on both sides of that argument. I've heard people say they don't like it because it's not organized enough. But I have also heard just as many people say that they think things are a little too stuffy from different things going on. And I'm like, you know, you're always going to have complainers. Truth is, we got to try to find the best balance that we can in our worship service, and then get on with the real business of going out here throughout the week and trying to shine the light of the gospel to the rest of the world. Do the best we can here, but let's really worry about the real mission, folks. We mess up when we over-fixate on the worship service and ignore what the real job is. So here's what I'm going to do now in our lesson this morning. I'm actually going to give to you, believe it or not, I'm going to give to you the secret to growing Christianity. I'm going to give it to you. Now, heads up, it's not going to be what you think it's going to be. Because when I say, hey, I'm going to give you the secret to helping Christianity grow, immediately most Christians have it in their mind, well, Wesley's going to give us some technique of evangelizing that we have just been woefully ignorant of. Christians have it in their mind, I've seen it everywhere I've gone. They think there must be some secret method that we could use that would actually start working and bringing people in. If we could just figure out what it is, then we could finally change things and get more people to becoming Christians. And they look for that secret technique here and there and over yonder, from this person, from that person, and just always seem to come up short. The reality of it is, and I'm convinced of this, The secret to expanding Christianity is not some technique. Rather, it's this. And I'm going to tell you, before I tell you what this is not going to be mind-blowing. You're going to hear this and you're going to think, that's it. Yeah, that's it. It may seem mundane, but I'm going to tell you, this is important, and this is the key to everything. If this doesn't happen, nothing's going to happen. Period. I don't care what technique you've got or who says what. I don't care. The key to helping Christianity grow is everybody being involved. That's it. Everybody, every Christian, stepping up to the plate and doing something. Whatever it is, whatever they can do to try to help bring people to Christ. If people start doing that, if Christians start working together as one, that's when God will bless growth. I want to show you a scripture. You know what, folks? This has been staring us in the face our whole lives. And sometimes we can't see it. It's all across the Bible, this whole concept. Go with me to 1 Corinthians. 1 Corinthians chapter 3, verses 6 and 7. Now, I know when we get to this verse, you have read this verse before. But we're going to read it again. 1 Corinthians chapter 3, 6 and 7. Now, this is Paul talking here. He says, I planted, Apollos watered, but God gave the growth. So neither he who plants nor he who waters is anything, but only God who gives the growth. What is he saying? Notice, I planted, Apollos watered. What's he describing there? Team effort. I did this, Apollos did that. We worked together. I did my part, he did his part, and what happened? What was the result of them working together as one? God gave the increase, or God gave the growth. I'm going to say this too. I'm going to take this a little step further here. Like I said, it's not really so much about technique or this method or that method or what. Just work together. It doesn't say God blessed them with growth because their technique was such that it was just amazing. No, it's not really about the technique. Your methods don't have to always be on point. As long as you are working together, God's going to bless it. Me and Jeff were watching some videos a while back of this evangelist talking about some of the work that he had done. And the thing that stood out to me from those videos that we watched of him talking, he said he had, I think it was a friend of his, who went to visit this church, and he was with the church, and he noticed that the church was really on fire for God, that they really seemed to be growing. And he said, but for the life of me, I could not understand why they were growing. He said, because every kind of outreach or any kind of thing that they tried to do, they didn't do any of it right. No technique, no method, whatever they were doing, they didn't do anything right. But somehow they still managed to grow. And he said, I couldn't understand it. Anything they do, they never executed it perfect. By no means. He said, finally I figured it out. The reason they're growing is because they're all working. Because they're all together on this. And they're all giving effort to it. That was their secret. They weren't perfect at anything that they did, but they didn't need to be. Like you've seen in this verse right here, 1 Corinthians 3, 6, and 7, it doesn't say if you're perfect at what you do, God will bless you with growth. It just says if you're doing something, God's going to bless it. If you're working together as one, God sees that. God is going to help you with that. Here's another verse I want you to see. Go to Acts chapter 8. Acts chapter 8, verses 3 and 4. As I read the book of Acts, and I know you've seen it too, I can't help but notice how Christianity was really growing then, it seemed like. There's many places where it talks about all these people being converted and all these great things happening. And you wonder, why was that happening in the first century church? Why was that happening? Well, here's a verse that really gives you a strong clue as to why that was happening. Acts chapter 8, verses 3 and 4. But Saul was ravaging the church and entering house after house. He dragged off men and women and committed them to prison. Now watch this, verse 4. Now those who were scattered went about preaching the word. Now, what's he saying? Saul was attacking Christianity. He was attacking Christians. And because of all the things he was doing, those Christians scattered. He scattered them. But what did they do as they scattered out? Look at verse 4. Those, or more literally, they, because that word is plural, they were scattered and went everywhere preaching the word. The key word in that verse is the word those or they. It was a group effort. They grew, and they grew even in the midst of persecution. Why? They grew in the midst of obstacles. Why? They shouldn't be growing in this. There's no reason for them to grow. They ought to be shrinking and shriveling up and dying, but they're not. They're growing. Why? Because they're all working as one. That's the secret. That's their secret. How'd they do it in Acts? Right here. Because they all were given effort. You know, we tell people that we're the church, don't we? We're the church. Well, what does the word church even mean? You know what that means? You say, yeah, I know what church means. Church comes from the Greek word ecclesia. That word means the called out. Good for you. Wonderful. But what does it mean, the called out? Called out for what? What has God called us out for? You say, well, He's called us out to be saved. Well, you're only half right. He not only called us out to be saved, but He also called us out to serve. Ephesians 2 verse 10, I gave it to you last few lessons. I'm going to give it to you again because you need to remember this one. Ephesians 2 verse 10, we are God's workmanship, created in Christ Jesus to do good works. God created us in Jesus. He saved us, not to go around putting on a whole bunch of worship services all the time, but to do good works. The church is a plurality of people. The church are those who have been called out to serve God. We're a group who is supposed to be serving God. Now, I hope you realize that when you got baptized, you were signing up to serve God. Now, a lot of Christians didn't realize that. They're thinking, hey, I'm getting baptized because I don't want to go to hell. I'm getting baptized because I want to be saved. You didn't realize that when you were getting baptized, you were telling God, hey, God, I'm going to serve you from now on out. Are you living up to that promise you made? You made a promise to God. No, why? Yes, you did. You made a promise to God that you would live your life for Him. You saved me, I'll live for you. Are you doing that? The church, all of us collectively, as one, have that responsibility. Here's another verse, Titus chapter 2, verse 14. Titus 2:14 speaks about Jesus. It says that He gave Himself for us, that He might redeem us from all iniquity and purify to Himself a people zealous of good works. Jesus died so you would do good works for Him. That's what that's saying. He gave Himself for this. He died for that. so that we, as one, as the church, could do good works for Him. It's a collective effort. And look at the life of Jesus Himself. Did you know, did you realize, did you understand that even Jesus Himself did not work alone? When Jesus was on this earth, He didn't just tell everybody, step back and watch me do all this. Didn't He have disciples? Didn't He have apostles? Wasn't there even John the Baptist who was also preaching about the kingdom of heaven? And all his disciples? All of those people were helping Jesus with His kingdom mission. Jesus didn't even work alone. Even for Him, it was everybody involved in this. Last I checked, there's no I in Jesus, but there is an us. Jesus. You know, folks, if we all work together, we all work as one, just like Jesus did. Aren't we supposed to follow His example? God will bless that. Now, I have noticed this in my own life. I've showed you all these scriptures and how the Bible lays this out for us, but I have seen this actually happen in reality. I have noticed that all of the churches that I have ever seen that were actually growing, I'm looking back on it and I'm thinking, all those churches I saw growing, they were all working. That's why they were growing. They all made it a collective effort. So before we came here to start working with you guys, we preached at New Hope Church of Christ back east in Tennessee. And the whole time that I was there, they would always have 2 services on Sunday. They'd have a Sunday morning worship service, and then we'd have one that afternoon. They did that pretty much the whole time I was there. But they told me here in recent years, they actually canceled their Sunday afternoon service. Gas. How could they cancel the worship service? How dare they? Let's get our smelling salts out, and fan ourselves, and clutch our pearls. Why would you do that? What they essentially were thinking was, you know what? We got a lot of Bible classes going on. We study the Bible, pray and sing and worship all the time. Why don't we start using some of this time to actually work together as a church? So in place of a Sunday afternoon service, what they started doing on Sunday afternoons is making meals to deliver to people. They get back there in the church kitchen and cook meals, make a whole bunch of plates, and then they would disperse those plates out. Hey, could you take these plates to these people? Hey, could you take these plates to those people? And they were telling me that a lot of people started getting involved in that. Even people who really weren't serving as they should, they started participating. And all these people were coming together, and I've seen pictures of them doing it, all the thing. I'm like, wow, like, look at this. And God has blessed them for that. A person told me that they'd been delivering meals, and somebody came up to them and gave them $100 and said, here, keep making these meals. And it wasn't even somebody that they had brought meals to. It was just somebody who saw them. They said, we see you doing this in the community. Your whole church is a part of this. We want to help you with that. I'm like, wow, that's amazing. What made that work? Everybody working together made that work. That's how that happened, right? I'll tell you another story I was thinking about the other day. Years ago, there were some churches in the Virginia, North Carolina area that we used to go to and visit, and they would put on tent revivals, where they would set up this big tent out in town somewhere, and every night they'd have preaching under the tent. And when they did those tent revivals, they were pretty serious about it, because those things would go for 2 weeks. So you'd have 2 weeks where every night they were having preaching under that tent. So I remember the first time we went to one of those. They wanted us to come. So we go up there, And the first thing, I'm not going to lie, the first thing I noticed was every member of that church just about is here. Like, y'all walk underneath that tent, they're all there. And they're all working. And I'm like, wow. I'm thinking, who's missing? Not many. They were all there. And we didn't just sit around twiddling our thumbs until evening time, waiting for the sermon time, What they would do throughout the day, every day, is they would be out door knocking, visiting with people, inviting people, talking with people. And when nighttime rolled around, I looked out in that audience when I got up to preach, and there's a lot of people there I did not recognize from all over that town. And it was amazing to me because so many different people, so many different ethnicities, all gathered underneath that tent. And I guarantee you, they weren't there because of me. They didn't know who Wesley Wynn was from Adam. They didn't sit there and say, hey, Wesley Wynn's going to be here. The town thought, Wesley Wynn, we better get that. No. They didn't know me from anybody. They weren't there because of me. You know why they were all there? Because everybody in that church was active. Everybody in that church tried to make an effort to help, and that's what made that successful. They didn't bank all their hopes on me. And that leads me to another point. You want to know another big mistake we've made in the church? Putting all our eggs in one basket. In other words, what I'm saying is putting all our hopes and dreams on the shoulders of one man. We're going to hire a preacher. He's going to turn the ship around. Yes, sir, he'll do all the evangelism for us, and he'll make the church grow. Yep. Churches have been doing that for generations, and look at the result. Look at the result. Have you never noticed that correlation? Christianity's going downhill, and we keep putting more and more responsibility on just the preacher, and it's all his job to do it. We ain't going, preacher, why ain't we going? I don't think you're doing your job. Look, I don't care. I had a guy one time, he wanted me to come work with the church he was at, and he told me, he said, yeah. He said, come on out here, and we'll pay you so much money, and if you make the church grow now, we're going to give you a substantial pay increase. And I thought to myself, let me get this straight. You're basically saying, we're going to throw money at you, and you better make the church grow. And I'm thinking, buddy, you can throw as much money at me as you want. You can throw as much money at any one person you want, and that ain't going to change nothing. And that one person can have a PhD or a degree or a whole bunch of XYZ letters behind his name, and that ain't going to change nothing. Churches, that's another problem we have is, well, he's got a PhD. I don't care. That's not going to change anything. What will change things is when everybody works together as one. Why do we put all our hopes and dreams on one person? It's your responsibility to do our growth for us. Like, what? No. That's terrible. They didn't do that in the book of Acts. I just showed you Acts 8 where they were all working together as one. What's the secret to church growth? Not a man. The church. A group of people. All working together. And that can be a beautiful thing. Now, remember Titus chapter 2. We talked about it just a second ago. Christ gave himself for us that he could redeem us, to be his people, and we could be zealous of good works. Zealous of good works. That means ready, willing, and able to do good things for God. You know, to be zealous of good works, to do great things for God, it doesn't have to be anything spectacular. I think about, in my own life, the people who've made an impact on me. There have been people who have just said a word to me, just one simple word, that has changed everything for me. You may look and say, I don't think I can do great things for God. There's not much I can do. I'm going to tell you, a little goes a long way. It really does. Never doubt that the things you do for God, no matter how small they might seem to you, can make an impact. Never doubt that. And age ain't got nothing to do with it either, y'all. I'm just going to throw this out here, but you don't get to stop serving God once you reach the age of 40. You don't go to say, oh, I'm 40 years old, and I guess I better stop. No. You don't get to stop. I'm sorry. And I'll give you an example of what I'm saying. Somebody that really stands out to me in my own life as a good example. I think about Bill Lewis. That man, when I met him, I know most of y'all knew him longer than I ever did. But when I met him, he was in his 80s. And immediately I was impressed by the fact that he still wanted to do something if he could. And wherever he could, however he could, he was going to serve or encourage or help somebody. And I remember whenever he was getting ready to have his surgery, his heart surgery, the night before he had his surgery, I think it was winter time, and it was Wednesday night Bible study, and the only people who showed up were me and Mr. Bob. We showed up, and nobody else showed up because it's the dead of winter, right? It's snow everywhere. But Mr. Bill showed up, and he just showed up just to say hi to us before he went to have his surgery. We visited with him a little bit, talked with him, we prayed with him. And I thought to myself, now look at this. The man is about to have major surgery. He could have just said, I ain't getting out in the wintertime to go visit nobody. I'm about to have surgery. I ain't got time for this. He was really thinking about us. He came to visit us. He went to have his surgery. And before, and I think even right after he had his surgery, there while he's in the hospital, the man was dying. He was texting people and encouraging them all the way up to the moment that man died. And I look at that and I'm thinking, wow, that's why he was my best friend. And some people might laugh at that and say, here you are, your 30s being best friends with an 80-something-year-old man. I don't care. He was a huge impact on my life. I miss that man every day. There's not a day that goes by I don't think about him. I'll say this to lighten the mood. One thing I really miss about him was Wednesday nights during the wintertime, like I was saying. He had this big green coat that he would wear. He'd have that big green coat on. And he'd come in with a toboggan or beanie, whatever you want to call it, on top of his head. I don't know how he did it. It defied physics. But he had that thing just barely sitting on top of his head and pulled all the way up. And he was real long and lanky, and he'd come in those doors right there. Howdy, howdy, howdy. With that thing bouncing around on top of his head. And I cracked up every single time I saw him. But I tell you, he had a way when he walked in the room. You know how some people walk in a room and it just darkens everything? Like, oh man, here they are. He wasn't like that. When he walked into a room, it brightened up. Like you knew he cared about you and he was here to help. It's like, man, I'm so glad to see you. It's like a breath of fresh air when he walked in there. I look at him and I say to myself, man, what an example for me. If anybody changed my life, it's probably Bill Lewis. And I'm so thankful for him. Never doubt what you can do for God at any age. No matter who we are, where you're at in life, what your abilities are, never doubt that in some small way you can make a difference and you can be a part of things and you can help. Now, before I end, I got to tell you this. I know how sermons go. I don't expect that I'm going to do this one sermon about how we all need to get together and get involved and everybody's just going to remember this forever. Boy, Wesley did that one sermon and ever since then everybody's just been involved and we hadn't forgot about that. Look, I know how sermons go. By lunchtime, we don't hardly remember there was a sermon. Breakfast time comes tomorrow morning. What's a sermon? So what we're going to do is we're going to actually do things to help you get involved, to actually involve you. For an example, that elders might come to some of you. And they might approach you and ask you, hey, would you mind taking on this responsibility? Could you do this? Could you handle that? And if they do, know that they love you and do it if you can. Be a part of things. Help out. And we're going to share other things with you to help you to be active and help you to be involved. But the main thing I'm just trying to impress on you today is it's got to be a group effort. We can't be sitting here hiding in the shadows hoping I go unnoticed and get out of here before anybody asks me to do anything. That can't be our mentality. Let's all try to work together as one. And folks, when we do, God is going to be in it. And God is going to bless us. Thank you for being here this morning. And if you're here, you're not a Christian, then we want to give you the opportunity to obey the gospel, to become God's child, begin to serve Him. And if you are a Christian and you've grown weak in your faith, then, hey, look, we're here to help you with that too. So this morning, if you have a need, if there's anything that we can do, please let it be known while together we stand and while we sing.